So for today's video, I thought it'd be fun to wrap up my Q&A series that I've done here on my channel by seeing how many more questions I can get through in the very limited amount of time that I have to film today. My goal is to try to get through 8 to 10 different questions, but we're gonna see how it goes. Before we do jump in, I wanna take a second and welcome you if this is your first time here. My name is Dana. I am a second generation homeschool mama. And just so you guys know where I am at in life right now, I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And every time I say their ages, I cannot believe that they are getting as old as they are. Time flies. Anyway, with all that being said, welcome again. I'm so glad to have you, and let's jump into today's video. So I am going to be pulling questions from a couple of different platforms. However, since YouTube tends to be where I hang out the most, I'm going to try to tackle these ones first. The first part of this mama's question I did answer in a previous video when it comes to what we do for work and homeschool conventions and things like that. I'm going to have all of the other Q&A videos that I've done so far linked down below in case you guys are curious. But she also asked 2 more questions, and those questions are: how did my husband and I meet? And if we ever differ on opinions about work, homeschool, child-rearing topics, etc., and how do we navigate that as a couple? So how my husband and I met, we actually met at Pensacola Christian College down in Florida. That's how, me being from the Midwest and he being from the East Coast, that's how we met. We met in a place where neither of us are from. But yes, we met down in Florida. We met via my roommate, and then him and his brother were really, really good friends. And she had invited me to go to, I think it was lunch after church, and then her really, really good friend, which was my husband's brother, and him, they were all there, and I guess the rest is history. The story is actually very long, and it did not start out very, I guess, nice and easy, but it is a little bit of a very detailed story. But we really did not start dating till about a year and a half after we initially met. But again, a very long story. I think my husband and I did talk about it together a little bit here on my channel. I'll see if I can find that video and link it down below in case you're curious. But yes, we met at Pensacola Christian College down in Florida. So the next part is if we ever differ on opinions about work, homeschool, child-rearing topics, etc., and how do we navigate that as a couple? I'm going to try to answer this in the order of kind of when we started talking about it, because we started talking about these topics pretty early on in our relationship. The homeschool topic came up pretty early. I want to say even before we got engaged, because you know when you're dating, you have those conversations of how many kids do you want, what do you want your future home to look like, you know, all those questions that you ask when you're dating. And I had shared with him pretty early on that it was kind of my dream to homeschool my children, and I was really happy that he aligned with that. But I also know that he was homeschooled himself for a couple of years, and his younger siblings were also homeschooled on and off for a few years as well. So this was not a new concept or a new idea. So it was not something that he had never been a part of or never knew anything about. And then of course, myself being second generation homeschooler, it was really just what the Lord has always really put on my heart to do. So we aligned really beautifully on that. So it was never really a discussion. It's just something that we knew we would always do. So then when my firstborn was old enough, like preschool, and I remember purchasing my very first formal curriculum, we were both really excited to dive into the new world of homeschooling our own little ones. So the next part of this question is if we differ on child rearing, and this is a yes and no question. When it comes to our core beliefs on how we want to raise our children, what we want to bring them up in, our vision for, you know, the little things, so the big things, I think we align on those beautifully. I think it took us a while though at the beginning to figure out what that vision was going to be, because both of our homes that we grew up in are really opposites as far as family dynamics. So we had to learn how to I guess create our own new dynamic and what we wanted that new dynamic to be without bringing each other's dynamic into it, if that makes sense. Because I know if you have 2 different people, 2 different upbringings, dynamics, you have to figure out what to make your own because the others are so different. So it's been interesting to find a new dynamic and a new vision. But I am really thankful that when it comes to really what we want our core to be for our home and our family, we do align on beautifully. So I am very thankful for that. When it comes to deferring topics on work, this is another one that I'm really thankful for, and I try not to take for granted, is my husband and I, we do work together, and we have worked together, I want to say 11 years now. Yeah, 11 years, which is crazy. And I've covered kind of what we do on previous videos, but we do travel together as a family. We're able to take all of our little ones with us. And so I am really, really incredibly thankful for that. So the next two questions are, what do you and your husband think about the future job market for the kids, and what are your family's long-term educational goals? This is another one that I could do a whole video on, but to do it quickly here, what do you and your husband think about the future job market for the kids? With the way things are going, and this is something that my husband and I have talked a lot about, but with the way things are changing at just a rapid pace, even with AI and things like that. For future job market, the way I see things going as far as what would be the top things that would kind of have job security in mind, honestly, are just the trades. We would be more apt to encourage our children to go to trade school than getting any other fancy business degree or anything like that. Now, if they do want to do medical engineering, obviously that's something that you would go to college for. Otherwise, it's like if you do want to be more entrepreneurial, start a business, stuff like that, we would probably encourage the trades, because I do not ever see those going out of business. And what's funny is when you see all the AI, all the tech things coming up, the one thing that's going to require is electricity, your electrical engineering, your electricians, and all of those. So the future job market, I would see, we've talked about it a lot, but I guess we both see the trades, honestly, construction, your plumbing, like electrical engineering, all that stuff. So really any of the trades is honestly where I see to be a very strong job market for the kids. And I think it's honestly beautiful because it's such an opportunity to own your own business and to be entrepreneurial, and that if you do happen to want to do the trades. So what are our family's long-term educational goals? We already talked about that a little bit with trades, but this is really why, not the only reason, because I've talked about this reason so many times, but one of the reasons why I love doing a very solid, sound, thorough curriculum and just strong curriculum, even in the little years, is because I want to prepare them for whatever it is that God's going to bring them to. And I don't know what that's going to be, honestly, because all of my children are little. I'm going to be a little bit countercultural here and say that my husband and I don't really ever ask our children what it is that they want to do when they grow up. We just don't. If they bring it up, then we are so happy to dream with them and plan with them. Like my 10-year-old really has hopes to own his own little reptile zoo and travel and show kids and teach kids about reptiles. And so we are 100% on board and will support him with whatever it is he decides. However, he is only 10, and right now I just don't want to constantly be asking my children, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up? When right now they just love being children. They love their season of life that they're in. We love the season of life that they're in. But then it goes back to why my core curriculum needs to be sound and solid, because when they are ready to start talking about that, I know that our foundation is in place to move forward, if that makes sense. So that's a huge reason why we do more rigid curriculum, because whatever it is that the Lord puts on their hearts, they will be ready. And that's my prayer anyway. My prayer is that hopefully they will be ready. So another question here that I don't think I've answered yet was, how do you homeschool with a teething baby? And to be perfectly honest, I haven't really had too many issues with teething per se, except my first baby, but because it was my first, I wasn't homeschooling at the time, so he was really my core focus. And I honestly don't remember what I did because it was like 9 or 10 years ago. But I do remember every time he did break a tooth in, he would have a fever, and that was always concerning. But I think the one thing that I did have a problem with more than teething would be colic, but I only had, one of my babies did have colic. Actually, my first also had colic. My first baby was very sanctifying, but yeah, so my second one also had a little bit of tummy issues, but again, I didn't have any homeschooling going on at the same time since they were so young at the same time. My first struggle, I guess you can call it, or my first adjustment for homeschooling with a baby was with my third born, and she was my one. If you guys are new around here, she is still my one that we're working with her speech delay, processing delays, and things like that. So she's always been my one that's been a little bit more needing mommy. And so for her, I honestly just baby wore her a lot, and I baby wore my fourth one a lot. Normally, whatever I was doing, wherever I was going, they were either on me, like on the back, or on the front of me, and that's just kind of, we did what we did. But I'm so sorry, I don't have better advice for homeschooling with a teething baby. I just haven't had too much experience with that, but I will see if I can find someone here that I know on YouTube and see if I can find their video and link it down below, because I do remember a YouTube mama friend of mine actually talking about this very specifically. So I'll see if I can link that down below for you, but I'm sorry I couldn't answer that better. Okay, so would you share somewhat about your kids' reading and writing journey? And if you or your mother had any struggling or late readers? Yes, so with our reading and writing journey, with reading and writing, my firstborn, I was talking about this with one of my friends the other day, and we were talking about how the firstborn is just an incredible new experience. And I remember back when my firstborn was probably, I don't know, 15, 18 months, I had all of our alphabet charts out, our number charts and letters, numbers, whatever the case may be. And I was full on homeschooling him when he was a baby because I was just so excited. And that was just what I loved doing in the afternoon. I would like get the charts out. Every time we sat down for lunch, we'd have fun picking out colors and shapes. And it was just so fun. Honestly, I was just so excited to dive into homeschooling. I just couldn't wait to start. I did not allow anyone to tell me you have to wait till a certain age. I just like dove right in as soon as I could. But yeah, so for him, he read pretty quickly and easily once we actually started the formal curriculum. We started out, I did alphaphonics with him, Victory Drill Book a little bit with him, and then we did the full-on CLE Learning to Read program. He was very, very quick to pick it up and was a very fluent reader at a pretty young age. So with him, I didn't really have any struggles or anything like that with reading or writing. He's been pretty fluent with that because I started with him at such a young age. With my second born, with my daughter, it's always funny because like every single time you add a child, you realize that you can start a little bit later maybe. But I did start her pretty early too, because at this point, like when she was old enough to start doing her letters and numbers, my firstborn was full on preschool, so we were really doing like beginning reading and everything like that. So she caught on pretty quickly because that's what her older brother was doing, and because they were so close in age, they really did everything together. However, with her, she got very overwhelmed with the formal reading curriculum, so it just took her more time. This is a huge part of our story about why we switched from the Learning to Read program to the McGuffies, even though I will always start out with the Learning to Read program. If she did the first 5 light units in the Learning to Read program, and then I moved her to the McGuffies just because it was a little bit too overwhelming for her. And once she started doing the McGuffies, and once we had the repetition of doing this, the same lesson 5 days in a row, or the same story, 5 days in a row, and the way we did that, she has become so fluent and just incredibly sound in her reading, to where she is now multiple grade levels above her reading level now. And she's reading full-on novels and books and like big books, and she's just so proud of herself and she loves it. And I greatly attribute that just to the whole method behind just doing those little tidbits of reading, 5-10 minutes a day, reading the same thing, but it just built reading fluency. So it took something that was a little bit more overwhelming and advanced too quickly for her and brought it back down to the point where the fluency just rapidly grew and grew and grew. So she really, really loved that. With my little preschooler now, or not preschooler, kindergartner now, she is my one that I'm having to work with more on her speech and processing. However, with her reading, she's doing really, really well. With her, it is the handwriting. And I've talked about this a lot on my channel as well. That handwriting is going to be a struggle. I can already tell it already is. She has no issues with tracing lines and things like that, but once I take the lines away, she has a really difficult time in processing like how to actually form the letters. A couple of things that we've been doing with her that has really helped with this is actually per the recommendation of some of you guys, is we've been doing the, I want to say the 8 writing pattern thing. I need to link it down below. But they draw the figure 8 writing sheets, I think is what they're called. That's been amazing. It has been the greatest blessing. So thank you again to the mama who suggested those. But she just does the figure 8 writing, and then you incorporate writing the letters into the figure 8. So for someone who needs help reconnecting those sides of the brain, it's incredible. Another thing that we've been doing with her is doing handwriting, but not on an actual table surface, but instead we will either tape a very large piece of paper to a wall where she'll have to lift her arms to write, or honestly what I've been doing is keeping a jar of dry erase markers at our window, and then I will like dot the letters and she'll have to go through and actually trace them, but she's writing like this. And the whole goal, I guess, is in order to strengthen your finger muscles here, you get to strengthen these muscles here. I don't know how they're connected. I think it's incredible to me the more research I do, but working on these muscles here is really what is needed in order to get these muscles to work correctly for handwriting. So what we've been doing again is I will trace some letters on a window, and then she will stand up there and draw on them. But the goal is to make sure this part of your arm is level with this part. So when you're writing on the wall, you really want it to be way up above your head. So any type of writing exercise that requires your little one who struggles with handwriting to lift above their head to write, is absolutely huge when it comes to struggling handwriting. So that's been something that we've been doing on our writing journey. And with her, again, with reading, we're beginning reading with her, and it's not something that we've noticed a huge struggle in as of yet, but that handwriting is what is keeping us from moving forward in a lot of different curriculum, because it's something that she just struggles with and gets frustrated with. So when it comes to my mom and any struggling or late readers, my younger sister was very dyslexic, and one thing I love about the way my mom did things when it came to homeschooling is she really, there was never this like intense pressure to have to like catch up or be someone different than what we were. And I really appreciated seeing her grace and really her patience with my younger sibling. And one thing that she did with her is my younger sister was really, really good musician. Like, she was an incredible violinist, very, very talented. And she could pick up whole concertos by ear just by listening to them a few times and just play it beautifully. And I always have been impressed by that. I really have, because I'm not a very good memorizer. I need to look at the music, then I'm good. But because she was dyslexic and didn't know how to read, my mom decided to make her, or encourage her very strongly, to read music, because music was really something that she loved. And because she wanted to learn new pieces, she would finally sit down and train her brain a little bit to read music. And once she started to read music, she was then able to correspond that to like, oh, this is the way the words are supposed to go too. So I just really admire my mom's patience and really giving her what she was interested in order to help her be fluent in reading. So she took something that she loved, which is music, and said, okay, well, once you learn how to read music, then you'll be able to read words. And so that was how she ended up handling that. And the other thing as well is with dyslexia with my sister, even though she did not read till she was much older, she was an incredible artist, and she is an incredible artist. And my mom provided her with like every learning tool imaginable when it came to art. So pastels, watercolors, like really any type of art form she gave her, and she was just able to master, and still masters that beautifully. And she is just an incredibly talented and gifted artist and musician today, because she was not forced to do something she wasn't ready for. My mom really did give her all the patience and space that she needed to go at her own pace, and now everything is great and beautifully, and she's doing wonderful. So that was the answer to our kind of reading and writing journey. So the next question I have, and this is now coming from Instagram, and it is, do we still keep our kids with us for Sunday school? Or no, for church. Yeah, do we still keep our kids with us for church? Or do they go to Sunday school? There we go. We still do keep them with us for church. This has been such a strong conviction of my husband and I's for really the past 3 years, but we've always kind of kept them in church with us. We've never been a huge fan of Sunday school, but having a very, very strong conviction, that's a new, like the past 3 years type conviction. And I think we both kind of have agreed that more, and this is something my mom always used to tell us as well, but more is caught than taught. And him and I have had so many discussions over the last few years of how are we going to expect our children to know what worshiping with the body of believers looks like if they're not allowed to experience it. And I'm going to be honest and say the church we're going to now, while we do love the people dearly, we are the only family in there that has kids in the church service, which does make me kind of sad. But I want my children to grow up knowing that they belong in worship too, that this is not just an age-segregated, anti-children environment. I long one day, I hope, I long for a family, not a family-friendly, but a child-friendly church where the children are welcome just as much as the adults. And it's not something that you're going to get stared at for being in service or anything like that. And that's really hard to find, because we've been to so many churches over the years, and there's just none that will really fully welcome children. And we could go into that in another big video as to why that is and the history behind it, because that's really interesting, but we'll leave that alone today and just say that yes, for now we have a very strong conviction that we really want our children to see us worshiping. We want them to hear we want them to hear the message. We want them to know the God of reverence and the God of peace and the God of beauty. And it's not about just going to be entertained for that hour, even though I know there's a lot of beauty in Sunday school. I'm not hating on Sunday school. Please don't think I'm hating on Sunday school. Our personal conviction is to raise our children up in the church as a part of the church. So the next few questions are kind of one and the same, and I'm going to explain why as we get into it. But the first one is, will we homeschool through high school, and do we do homeschool co-ops? So will we homeschool through high school? Yes, I 100%, Lord willing, I pray that we will be able to. And this is something that is definitely a lot easier than it used to be because there's so many different incredible resources. I do plan, however, once I get to high school to maybe outsource a few things. Definitely still do our homeschool, but maybe do some online courses for advanced math or different other concepts and sciences and things like that. But it depends. It depends where we are at in that season of life. So do we do a homeschool co-op? Yeah, we used to, we don't now. So we did it for a very short time. We only did it for one semester and we just couldn't do it anymore just because of the time commitment. And in the little years, it's just hard, honestly, to get everyone out of the house and to get the baby and the toddler ready, because during the season where I tried to do a homeschool co-op, I had a little baby and a little toddler who had to get ready and go with mama, who I had to keep happy and entertained while big brother and sister were in their little class and things like that. And it was just very, very time consuming, and it was very rushed, and I just could not commit to it anymore because it made me very frazzled, to be perfectly honest. I did not want my children to experience, or to really have the experience of their homeschool journey be me being stressed out, if that makes sense. Because there was a lot of that, because the baby and toddler in tow, trying to get everyone to and fro. And so once we laid that down, it just became a much more relaxed atmosphere and very much more beautiful, I should say. What we do now is choose specific classes. My children are a part of an art class right now. It's just a homeschool mom who's an incredible artist, graduate, very, very well trained. And she does 4 4-week sessions. So the first one is drawing, then they went to painting, then they have like molding, and then mixed media to round out the year with. And I love this. They not only get to meet together and have a wonderful group of other homeschool children, all learning the same thing, but because it's in a very, not a formal environment, but because it is a very structured environment, it's beautiful. I'd much rather have that hour and a half of very structured learning time with a bunch of other homeschool friends wanting to learn the same thing than getting together and trying to fight for everyone's attention. It's very structured, it's organized, and they have met some beautiful and just lovely, lovely friends at that class. So I'm really thankful for that. And then we do music lessons, but my mom teaches them that, so it's fun to kind of go over there and hang out for a little bit. But our only kind of like out of the home formal class is their art lessons right now, and that's been such a blessing. I am going to try to do, in the winter anyway, there's a homeschool science class that I also want to sign up for. It's not a part of a homeschool co-op. However, it is just a science teacher, a homeschool mom as well. She actually used to be a nurse, so she is the one that's going to be teaching, I think, like elementary biology, I think is one of the classes. But this is also one of those things that's very structured class where it's just only going to be 4 weeks where your kiddos can come in, sign up, and we can do all the biology things for those 4 weeks. So I love the fact that I can sign up for a class when I have time and when our schedule allows. And the other thing one of the other reasons why I don't do co-ops is because if you guys are new here, in the second semester or the spring semester, we're gone most of that spring and summer, so we just can't commit to a whole year of co-ops and drop out the last part of the year. That's really in a nutshell why we don't do homeschool co-ops. I'm not against them, but we do more of the classes thing right now, just because of the time commitment. The other question here is someone asked how to do the McGuffies for a complete K-8 curriculum. This one is a wonderful question, and I could do another video on it. However, I'm going to recommend you a couple of resources here on YouTube to check out when it comes to wanting a complete K-8 curriculum. And that would be to check out Sherry Hayes here on YouTube. She is phenomenal when it comes to her knowledge on how to use the McGuffey readers for every single age. She is where I gained all of my information on. She is what really inspired me to start using them. And every time I feel like I'm not doing enough, I go and watch her videos, and she reminds me that this is really sound and beautiful and thorough. So she's just one that I go to very consistently and watch her videos over and over again, just for a homeschool encouragement. It's such a sweet lady. But her name is Sherry Hayes. I will have her channel linked down below. And if you need any tips and advice how to use that curriculum for the above grades, definitely check her out, since I only have experience in little years here. Another resource I would definitely check out for McGuffey readers would be Landed Cat Kayak. I have also used her channel as a wonderful, wonderful resource for learning how to use the curriculum, as well as she is the lady that designs those grammar bookmarks that I have talked a lot about here on my channel as well. And she is also just full of incredible amount of wisdom when it comes to using just these beautiful, beautiful resources. Anyways, I think this is all I'm gonna have time for today. I am so sorry. I do have one more question that I'm going to be addressing later this week on Friday. So that will be a designated video, and then we'll move into more Christmas content, which I'm so excited for. But keep an eye out for that video because that will really be the really final Q&A video for everything like that. But thank you guys so much for being here and for watching. I truly appreciate it. And until my next video, you guys have a wonderful day and God bless. Bye guys.